you go, delete.
Woo! Hi, we're live. We are live with Uncensored Entrepreneurs today. And I just had a sip of coffee. That's why I'm so loud. So we are really excited today to talk to you about leveraging your business by outsourcing. How many of you have been a solopreneur and you're absolutely burnt out, you're exhausted, you're a little bit of a control freak like we all are, and we want to take full responsibility for our business. But is that really the best way to scale and grow your business? Today, we're on Uncensored Entrepreneurs. We're going to talk about how to leverage and grow your business using other experts in the industry to help you build and grow and expose your business. Welcome to Uncensored Entrepreneurs.
Wow, that's
cool. Uncensored Entrepreneurs. Isn't that a cool intro?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Uncensored Entrepreneurs. I'm Tina Torres, one of your co-hosts. Oh my gosh. Tomorrow is September 1st.
What?
I woke up and I was like, what am I going to wear? And I was like, oh, Labor's Day is Monday. And I went, wait, Labor Day is Monday?
We're white.
Right. I'm like, no. Oh, no. I'm a fashionista. I wear white after Labor Day. I do not care. Okay, so you're still in Canada.
I'm still in Canada. That's why I'm dressed like it's the Arctic, because it's freaking freezing here. There's a reason that we moved to Cabo San Lucas.
Just looking at you with a big hoodie on.
If you could see, I'm also wearing sweatpants and slippers.
And fuzzy socks?
No socks. I like bare feet. I know I'm kind of weird that way. But we have a guest today. Tina, would you like to introduce our guest?
Listen, this guy, he's been a good friend of mine for a very long time. We've been working together. We've talked on stage together. Our favorite place to go is Vegas because we walk up and down the strip all the time and do all these like crazy things like, the oxygen bar and all this other stuff. Did we get that little pin thing that was in our bag that was like,
yeah, that was weird. There were so many weird little things like that.
It was it was like electrifying us.
Yeah.
So Dan Meyer is on as our sponsor this month. We're so excited that Uncensored Entrepreneurs is having sponsors now. We are going to hit the podcast StreamYards here pretty soon. And almost 1 million people between the combined four of us. Can you believe that?
Crazy. Isn't that incredible? Like when you actually sit down and think about it, how business used to be done, right? Business used to be done belly to belly, door to door, right? Could you imagine doing one podcast for an hour and hitting 1 million people viewing? Like, and I think that sometimes we underestimate too, like when you have lower views on your videos, right? 200 or 300 people, how long would it take you to knock on those doors, right? Pretty amazing.
So podcast is like the up and coming thing, right? Like everybody wants to podcast. Everybody wants to get their information out there, voice and video. And so Dan Meyer, his business, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to ask him questions. If you guys have questions yourself, let us know. We'll ask him on show today. Now, you know that there's always 3 women and a man here. There is 3 women and a man here, but we are missing our main man, Mr. Robert Wall, who is behind the scenes right now and sick, and his whole family is sick, actually. So please pray that they get healthy and they get better easily, because Robert, you're coming with me to Florida next week.
Yeah, get healthy. And look, we know every year September rolls around, kids go back to school, cold and flu season. So buck up on your vitamins, okay? Make sure you get hydrated, Robert. We're praying for you. We know that you're going to be amazing for next week when you head to Florida with Miss Tina Torres. And today, I'm really excited to talk about how to leverage your business, because a lot of the times when you're a brand new entrepreneur, you start from scratch. You're your only employee, right? It's all on your shoulders. And there comes a time in your business where, a lot of times entrepreneurs get into business and they're like, I do it for the freedom. And then how many of you guys have worked like 14 to 16-hour days and you're like, what freedom is this? Like, this is not freedom. This is like a passion project from the heart that is slowly killing me inside.
No, listen, it took me a long time to delegate because I am a recovering perfectionist where I had to do everything myself and controlling and all that. So, okay. So Dan, what is the main thing that you should do? Like, so as all of our entrepreneurs are out there watching, that one thing that you're like, okay, I think it's time for me to get some help. What is that first thing that they ask you guys for? Not
counselor. A counselor.
Mental health.
Yep. So, I mean, besides that, which I think we all probably need, the thing I always recommend is make a list of everything you have to do in your business, right? Just take out a piece of paper, make a list of all the things you do on a weekly basis. You have to like create social media content. You got to post it. You got to send emails out. You got to do your bookkeeping, whatever, all the things you could think of, right? And then circle the ones that you don't have to do yourself, the things that can be theoretically delegated. Pickle a couple of those and start with a virtual assistant, a part-time, low-cost virtual assistant to get a few of the things off your plate. I mean, really what I've learned to be the key to success is you hire an assistant to help you focus on what you do best. Let them do everything else, right? So it frees you up to be what you're probably best at. And for most entrepreneurs, it's being the face of the business. It's making videos, being on podcasts, being on stage, writing a book. That kind of stuff keeps you busy. Let somebody else be the one to post it on social media and to do the follow-ups and send the emails and answer the DMs. So you can really be that content creator that is at the forefront of your business. That's really what I think is the key.
I love that, Dan. Yeah. I was so excited for this topic because I'm the opposite of Tina. Every business that I ran, it's like, okay, how quickly can I get support in here to do X, Y, Z? So I dive in the very beginning of starting a business. I feel like that's like one of my genius zones is like starting an actual business. So I'll stay up till like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. doing all the hard work, figuring things out, sourcing products, communicating with people. But once everything is dialed in, okay, quickly, what can I outsource? How can I bring team on? And this has allowed me to scale so effectively in every business that I've started. I don't want to be doing all the things at all. And it could be, I found out that I'm a projector. That's my human design. Since I got into the coaching space, some of it could be from that. But I also feel like people remain stagnant in terms of like being able to grow their business, take on more clients, make more money because they're trying to do so much. So Dan, can you share a little bit about how you got started in this business too? I'm curious to know that.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I actually was working for a company here in the US, corporate job, that kind of thing. Never thought about being an entrepreneur until I kind of hit a ceiling of where I was at. And I felt like the only way for me to do what I wanted to do was to leave and set up my own business. So I had an opportunity to do that about 12 years ago. And my first business was an utter disaster. I did everything myself and I did almost everything wrong. But I learned. And the most important thing I learned was that I can't do it myself. So in year 2 of entrepreneurship, I relaunched a new version of my business. And the first thing I did was hire 2 virtual assistants, ones that could free me up from doing things like social media posting and managing my email, things that I could build a script for, or, give people a how-to thing that they can just go and do. And then I'd only have to be involved when something was directly involving, ask a question of me or something only I can answer. But that freed me up to do things like write a book, to go and to go to a bunch of business events, to build my experience as a speaker. So that freeing yourself up to focus on what you do best really is what it's all about. And so I did that back in 2012, 13. And as I was doing that, I got asked by other people, so how do I find a virtual assistant? And so I said, well, I guess I can, try to help you find one. And before I knew it, I had built a business of almost 100 employees servicing several companies in outsourcing. And some of it was full-time, 9 to 5 work where it was just sent overseas. But a lot of it's like small businesses and entrepreneurs that are just saying, hey, I'm on a budget. I want to get a few things. I want to be able to, outsource my video editing for my YouTube channel. I want to be able to outsource my email marketing campaigns. And so I over my time in doing this, I built up a network of virtual assistants, a talent pool that I can assign and match people to. So since the pandemic started, I've really been focused primarily on this business, on the VA business, and it's been very successful because I've just figured out, how to listen to somebody talk about their business, how they describe what they do, how they make that list of what keeps them busy, and then picking off the ones to outsource and find the right person to do that. So that's how I've done it. I did it first for myself, and then I started doing it for other people, and that's what I've been doing basically ever since.
I love that so much. When you as an entrepreneur get to live and work in your zone of genius,
Yep.
you get your joy back, right?
Yep.
Like, it's not all the
100%.
small mundane things. And the truth is, you might not want to face this, but the truth is there are people that can do some of those things that you don't want to do a lot better than you. And they can do it more efficiently than you. And one of the huge wake up calls for me when I realized I wasn't outsourcing enough, because I'm a bit of a control freak. And you want to have everything just so, right? Like, it's your baby, it's your business, right? And this is very, very common to have a hard time letting go of that piece. Is somebody said to me, if you can have somebody else do what you do at 80%, then you win. Then you win and you can scale, right? And one of the things that made a huge difference in my business and started getting me to think more about what I could be outsourcing. Of course, guys, I'm going to recommend a book, obviously. It's me, right?
The book I recommend this week is
right. We should get sponsored by these books. I swear to God. And so it's a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Meyer. It was incredible. When I started reading that book, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many other things that I could be outsourcing. And like the first simple thing is outsourcing your calendar and your email. Most people still want control over all those things. But when you set timelines, you set guides and schedules and say, hey, fill my schedule with calls for me, right? Fill my schedule with podcast bookings. Fill my schedule with people that are pre-qualified to speak with me about my programs. Everything shifts, and you spend so much more time focusing on the things that you can do better than most, right? You get to operate in that zone of genius so that you can have everything else taken care of. And I'm telling you, when you start to think that way, that's when your business starts to grow. Because I see people get in this trap of like, okay, well, I've made $50,000. I need to scale to 100. And they think, okay, well, I've got to do more. I've got to work more. They get to $100,000 and they're like, okay, I want to scale to $250,000. Well, number one, you have to become the person required to build business, right? You have to become that person that is going to operate at a different rhythm, move a little bit faster. You've also got to become a person that leads a team. If you want to get to $500,000 or $1 million a year, you cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. It is impossible to do alone. It is something that you have to hire out. And so, Dan, when most entrepreneurs come to you, what are they struggling with initially? What are the things that most entrepreneurs struggle with before they decide to hire somebody?
Sure. So there's a lot of different options out there, but what we specialize in really is that I think a niche that a lot of people that are entrepreneurs, especially people that are 35 plus American, the most common thing that they tend to outsource is content editing and graphics and posting to social media. So a lot of people can record good content. They can write something really well, but it's too hard to do it consistently, right? So if you want to drop a new YouTube video a week, turn that into 3 or 4 reels that get shared in your social media, take a audio version of that and turn it into a podcast, and then actually take that and transcribe it into a blog post. All that stuff, if all you do is record the raw video file, and then somebody does everything else, that's where you find your leverage your freedom, right? So you take what you have up here and you put it into a recording, and then somebody else or a team do everything else. For example, that's what I do. And again, I've learned this myself, and I work with a lot of business owners that are in the same boat. Is like, I love creating content. I love talking about my business, about what I do. It's my passion to help people. I want to add value. We all do this, right? This is why we're entrepreneurs. The question is, how much can you handle yourself? And if you're trying to edit your own videos and build your own podcast and write your own blog, that's 80 hours a week of work a week, and no one can do that. So you got to find a way to delegate that stuff.
And it's so hard too, because when you are starting out, you're like, okay, I don't have the money to outsource, right? So I'm just going to teach myself how to create a landing page. It takes me 8 hours to teach myself how to create a landing page. I'm going to teach myself how to edit videos. takes me like 2 or 3 weeks to learn how to do that, and not even still do it very well. So what do you recommend people if they're just starting out? What do you recommend for those people who are just starting out, who don't have a lot of money to spend, who are like overwhelmed with all the things and trying to do everything themselves?
Mhm. Well, I think there's a couple different ways to go with this, right? So what I really focus on is that I have a price point that we offer, and we have a starting point of $11 an hour for a lot of our VA services. And it's because most of my team is employed in the Philippines. And I've built up a long career. I've spent most of the last 10 years going back and forth to the Philippines. That's where my business is really based. And you can get a good quality video editor, a good graphic designer, someone that's willing to work for that price. It's hard to find somebody that can do that in other areas, that can do it well and do it for that price. So you want to figure out your budget. If you can allocate $100 a week to have somebody else do a couple videos for you, build some graphics, drop it in social media, do some content engagement, thank people for liking, encourage people to share, all that. You can get that done in a couple hours a day for $100 a week. That's, I think, the minimum of what you should be able to allocate. If you need to go cheaper than that, because you're just not quite there yet in your business, there are other ways. There are services like Fiverr, Fiverr, or you can hire a VA directly for cheaper. Some will work for as less as like $3 or $4 an hour. But if you want to go through an agency like mine, where you have somebody that's going to ensure that you have the right talent, that will help make sure that if you ever have a problem with the VA, you have a troubleshooter in the middle. So you pay a little bit more for that. So you kind of want to decide, what is your budget and what are you looking to achieve? And if you're looking to achieve something where you want good stuff that will help you grow your business incrementally, then hiring a VA a couple of hours a day for $100 a week is kind of like, I think, the good starting point.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to talk about where you're hiring people from, because Fiverr's great, but you're also going to have to go through a bunch of people to find somebody good,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And so I want to be honest with people. I've made a few $10,000 mistakes. I've hired the wrong people for marketing or the wrong people for funnels. I've made those mistakes because I was trying to cut corners and save money. I know that doesn't sound like saving money, but I was trying to cut corners and save money on certain things. And so recently I went to hire somebody, and I think, Dan, what you've got going on with VAs is great. I wanted something very, very specific. I wanted an appointment setter, somebody that could be a community manager, that would get to know my team, get to know me, and really represent my brand. And so I paid somebody for the same service that Dan provides to help me hire a specific appointment setter for my business that could help me grow that business and that brand and have the same vision as me. Now, I had to spend $5,000 to do that. They audited my business. They went through their Rolodex of people, and they partnered me with 5 or 6 people that they aligned with my business, that applied to be with my business. I did a video. I said, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm looking for, and how all these applications come in. They filter those, and then you find the right person. Now, I can tell you, yes, I paid more for that service, but man, was it worth it? Because for me to go out there and try and find somebody in the sea of people online is so difficult when you have to vet them yourself. So Dan, what you're doing for people and helping them find VAs is absolutely incredible, right? Having that kind of service that you already have that going on, I think is so valuable to people, and having the referral service to be able to do so, because it's really challenging to find the right people. And the other thing that I'll say is, if you don't find the right person, be quick to fire and hire again, right? Like, don't stick it out for a year. I made that mistake too, is that I tried to hire cheaply because that was my budget. And so I had people that were reaching out to people that weren't in alignment with my dream customer, that weren't in alignment with the people that I wanted to work with. And it was such a huge waste of time and money. Whereas if you actually work specifically with people who want to help you build your vision out, you're going to have way greater results, even if you pay a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Dan, that's one of the things that I see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with when bringing on team, is that they feel, okay, I want to bring someone on, but I'm going to spend more time now training them, because I have to make sure that they're understanding my process and what it is that I need them to do. And they find themselves in a position where, yeah, now they have support, but they're actually working more hours. What advice do you have for people who are maybe going through that? That was something that came up in the mastermind that I'm in actually yesterday.
So the way it should work, in theory, if you've got a good assistant that you're delegating stuff to, is that you got to give yourself about a month to get them onboarded, right? You got to think about the fact that even if they're skilled at editing videos, or they know the email management app they're using, like they know MailChimp really well, or they know how to use your appointment setting app, they don't know how you use it, and they have to learn that, right? And that will take time. So you want to give yourself a onboarding period, a couple hours a day for the first week, a couple hours a week for the second week. Then by the end of the first month, you should be down to an hour or so a week where you guys are just doing check-ins. That's what you should expect. But that first week, you got to put a lot into it. The second week, a little bit more, especially if you're hiring a VA, because one of your challenges is you're not as organized as you want to be. You don't have things documented. You don't have a lot of things. That's where a VA can be worth their weight in gold, is helping you put all that in place. So even if the VA isn't the perfect VA for you, at least they start building on something that somebody else can pick up. And what I find is that I'm pretty good at matching VAs and clients, but I don't always get it right. So I agree. You want to cut and replace that person quickly, right? If it's not working after a couple of weeks, if there's the wrong chemistry, they're just not quite getting you, then we'll find a replacement for you. And that's because you want to find that person that knows your voice, that speaks the way you speak, that carries the business the way you want it to be carried. And that's a chemistry thing, right? So you need a couple of weeks to make sure that's going to work. And if it does, you keep going. And the beauty is, I've got most of my social media is managed by people, and I don't spend any time on it anymore. Like, so I started out like that when I first launched my YouTube channel. I had to give them a lot of feedback. I had to constantly say, no, fix this. But now for the last year, it's like I record a couple of videos once a day or one day a month, drop them into a file, and then every Tuesday and Thursday for the next couple of weeks, a new video drops on my channel, gets shared on my social media, comments get handled by somebody else. I just spend one day a week or one day a month recording some raw content. And it took a while to get there, but once you get there, it's such a time saver.
It really is, because my VA, who I absolutely adore, she's been working with me for a little over a year now. And it did take me about a month or two for her to, get my style. But now I don't even approve anything anymore. She just posts all the stuff. And I'm like, dang, that sounds exactly like something I would say. And so she posts things that I would say. She talks the way I would talk. And I always tell her I'm not a very serious person. As you guys can tell, I'm very bubbly. And, so she puts my post out there that way. And, we do a little holiday type of things. And she knows all the holidays that I would choose, National Coffee Day or, something like that, National Dog Day.
Aw.
She did that little dog thing the other day, and I was like, that made me cry because now Chloe's gone.
Aw.
But she made a little thing, I don't know, but it was really cute. So, and your brand is so important, and coming from a branding coach, your brand is so important to keep on brand and to stay on brand. Daniel, when you go out there and you match these people up, what do you look for in your VAs, and what do you look for in your clients that you're going to match these people to?
So a couple things. One is that I've gotten pretty good, and Tina, you and I did this a lot together, going around and going to different business events, listening to entrepreneurs, listening to their problems, trying to figure out what they need. It helps me get a sense. So when I first interact with a potential client, we'll do a quick Zoom call. I'll go through a bunch of questions to kind of get an idea of what I think we can do for them. So that's the first part, is I can help people that know what they need. We can try to help everybody, and we do, but the ones that we're most successful with tend to have a plan. Like they know they want to be able to drop 2 new YouTube videos a week. They know they want to add 50 new connections on their LinkedIn a week. They know they want to be able to push things to Pinterest every Wednesday afternoon. Whatever it is, they have an idea of what they want. Those are the easiest ones to work with. And if you don't have an idea of what you want, that's part of what I do, is to help you figure out, well, then where do we start? On the VA side, I look for people that have experience working with Americans. So my secret sauce is majority of my employees are former call center agents, because the Philippines, as you probably all know, has a lot of customer service call centers because of the English speaking language there. And they're all stay-at-home moms. So they all had call center jobs that left that workforce to be able to be working from home with their children. And so that's where I find to be a good success for me, because they've had experience working in a structured environment, working with Americans, speaking American style English every day. They're used to deadlines and working within that kind of environment. So they make really good virtual assistants. So that's where I pull most of my talent from.
It's great.
One of the questions here is, what's the cost of not doing this? What's the cost of not hiring somebody? And I think that that's a really valid question, because I know that a lot of entrepreneurs don't make it long term, right? They want to scale, they want to grow, they keep going on that hamster wheel, and they get so frustrated that they just give up. They get to the point that, this is not why I started my business, to work 14 hours a day. I'm missing out on raising my kids. I'm missing out on going on vacation. I don't feel like I can go on vacation. I don't feel like I can let this go. And so, what is the cost of not hiring out people that can help you grow your business and leverage your time?
Yep, exactly. And I think that's really, again, where if you have an idea of what you want to delegate, that's a big start, because it's hard. And I've tried this with hundreds of people, and we've been some successful in some cases, but it's hard to work with an entrepreneur who doesn't really have a plan. They have an idea, they have a vision, but they've got a lot of limitations on what they can do to be successful. And if you combine that experience with knowing, the data that 4 out of 5 small business owners eventually are gonna fail, there's a lot of turnover in the entrepreneurial space. So to kind of ensure that you're not one of those people who end up quitting, you've got to delegate things early, and you've got to be willing to do the thing like mentioned earlier, 80% perfection versus 100% perfection. 80% is good enough for most things, right? Especially when you're starting. You're never going to come out the gate and do it perfectly. I mentioned before, my first business was an epic disaster. But I call it a beautiful business.
We've all had a few of those.
Exactly, right? So those of us that stick with it, it's because we learn from our mistakes and we can apply them again. And I think that's the most important aspect, right? So if you're thinking of growing your business and you're feeling kind of stuck, like you want to do more, but you don't have any more time to put into it, you've got to be able to find that person that you can offload some of the things to.
And I have often found too that when you do hire somebody like that, you step back a little bit to hire them and to get them onboarded, but then all of a sudden your business jumps skyrocket, because now you can focus on what you do. Now you can stay in your lane. Now you can stay in your lane of creativity that you are supposed to stay in, instead of being a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? Like, go, Starr, I know you were about to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what are your thoughts around like SOPs, having those standard operating procedures in place, or if somebody were to come to a company like yours, what should an entrepreneur have in place that would help you and your team make this a smooth process?
So just by the fact that you said SOP shows that you have a certain organizational mindset. And for me, that's like, okay, good, because that means that we're going to be able to speak the same language when it comes to setting expectations, providing metrics, having, clear goals. That's the kind of things that I look for, right? So what can we deliver what they want? We can try to do anything. I mean, anything that can be done from a computer can be delegated to a virtual assistant, but it's what's going to work. And so I think that, the first thing I think about is, how much time are you spending creating content and publishing that content on social media? That's the biggest time consumer for most of us. And there's 2 reasons for it, I found. One is that when we go to post our own social media, we spend a lot of our time not doing what we went there to do in the first place. Like, I'm going to go drop a video, right? I'm going to drop a reel on my Facebook.
We start scrolling when we're not supposed to scroll, and 2 hours later we're still on TikTok. Oh,
right. That's exactly my point. Yeah. So that's a big reason why I feel like we shouldn't manage our own social media. And so I don't, right? So like, if you look at any of my social media, the only thing that I manage myself is my own Facebook personal page. But I've got an Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, a couple of Facebook business pages. It's all managed by VAs. And they check in with me when they have a question. But for the most part, that way I don't spend a lot of my time getting caught up in my social media, right? I think that's number one. And I think number 2 is, trying to make sure that you follow up, right? So, the money's in the follow-up. And so you got to constantly be, touching base with people that you put into your CRM, or if you even have a CRM. A lot of first-time entrepreneurs don't even have like a Google sheet with all their email addresses in it. So having a VA do something like that, give you a simple spreadsheet that can become a CRM, that can become a follow-up process, that can be something where every month you're tapping back on, cold leads. That is a great way to start with a VA, because that's really time consuming, and we get too busy to remember to follow up on stuff. Like Tina's talked to me about this for a couple months now, and I kept saying, yeah. And I finally said yes, but she had to follow up with me several times, not because I didn't want to do it, but because I get distracted.
Right.
So that's where I think
he was also in the Philippines too.
Oh, I was, yeah. But I think that's really the most important thing is the follow-up and the consistency. And that's what you should use a VA for, to help you be consistent and then to do the follow-up.
And there are also tools that you can use too, right? Like Project Broadcast and Shout and tools like that where, by the way, I get my VA to set those things up in a series, right? Because again, for technology purposes, like I am the creative behind my brand. I am not the technology person or the graphic person. That would take me years. Like it would take me days to put that together. Whereas if I outsource it to somebody else that's great at that, it might take them an hour or two. And I'd rather pay them $11 an hour to outsource that than take my time for a day. Whereas I could be talking to new leads. I could be talking to people that are ready to start with my program. I could be creating more value for social media and doing what I need to do in that process. Starr, I would love to throw this back to you because you're opposite to this, okay? Because we all said, we hire when we're just like underwater, right? When we're drowning, we start to hire people.
Starr's like, I hire immediately.
I know. So like, I want to hear a bit of your process, Starr. I want to hear about how you look at business and how you start from the ground up and think, okay, if this is what I want, this is the outcome I want. Where do you start in your hiring process and how do you scale that so quickly? Because I know that in revenue, I know you've got a brick and mortar business and that you've been able to scale that to $1 million a year. And I think that's incredible. And people want to know that. They want to know, like, how did you do that? Because I also think that they don't realize that when you make $1 million a year, how much are you spending? Right? Like, how much are you outsourcing? How much? Because, I think about this all the time. People are like, wow, like, look at her. She's on social media, on Facebook and, doing 500,000 or $1 million in sales a month. But what they don't know is they're spending 500,000 to make that $1 million, right? So like, can you talk a little bit about that in your business?
Yeah, definitely. So every business is a little bit different for me. So I also understand that there's going to be people who have an expertise in certain areas. So first of all, I need to figure out, okay, do I need to have somebody in charge of social media? Do I need to have somebody in charge of customer service? Do I need to have somebody who's going to be in charge of, my website or fulfilling orders, that sort of thing? So first of all, I figure out what is it that I don't want to do. Kind of like Dan said, like make a list. That's what I have my clients do of everything that you do for the next week or two, or even 30 days, for example. But for me, I already know, okay, I'm doing this, I'm running these reports. Also for me, there's certain aspects of the business that I don't want certain people to see or be involved in. So I may outsource that to somebody who's going to be overseas, who may have access to specific financial information that I don't want internal people to have access to, for example. So I'm really looking at every aspect of the business that I don't want my hands on. And also for me, you guys know that I'm all about time freedom. I want women to have as much time freedom as possible. So, it's beyond just the actual team, but it's also like, what can I put in place? Can I have specific cameras in place? Do I have these apps on my computer where I can see what's going on? Am I going to take phone calls between these specific hours? So there's a lot that actually goes into it. But I think I've also made a lot of mistakes along the way. I've had embezzlement in my company. Even in the coaching, like I had somebody sitting in my DMs literally for a year, like a stupid person, right? Like, why would I continue to have this person? And it's not bringing the momentum that I needed to have. So I'm also evaluating that, what's happening in the business. So now I'm much quicker to fire people, whether that be, retail associates, whether that be like a VA, whether that be somebody who's slow at like packing orders. So yeah, I've done a lot of hiring. And also, for example, I had a bead business where people had to come in and pack beads. And so there's certain criteria that go into that. Like, are you able to take photos the way that I need you to take it? Because it's weird. Like some people really can't do specific things, or write content or write descriptions the way that you need to write them. So as soon as you see that you've trained this person, you've given them like an example to follow. So like I'll record stuff, I'll have documents written up. If they cannot follow those things within a certain time period or as quickly as I like it to happen, I actually let them go really quick now.
Yeah, that's a good idea. There was a book that I read. Again, I read a lot of books. There's a book that I read called Jack, and it was by Jack Welch, who is the CEO of GE, of General Electric, and what he had to do to build that company to where it's at. And quarterly, they would fire the bottom 10%. It didn't matter how amazing they were, but they would fire the bottom 10% every single quarter. And not only would that motivate people to do more and become better and work their way up the ladder and be innovative.
Have been crazy.
Right. Well, yeah, right. But like it really, and he said, it's one of those things that like this was understood throughout the entire business. And some people would like work their way up from like being mechanics all the way up into management or into sales positions and earning commission and even into directors and VP positions because they were highly motivated to do so. And they saw the structure and the honesty in the company. And I think that a lot of the times, we get emotionally involved, especially as women. We get emotionally involved with our staff, and not like in a romantic way that sounded weird, but like we get emotionally involved with the people that we work with. And then we're like, oh, we can't fire them. They have a family, or we can't fire them because they need this money to eat or whatever it is. And it's just like, there has to be some sort of guideline and conversation as you're moving into it and say, these are my expectations. This is what I want to happen. I need an open relationship. I need feedback from you. I need to be able to work with you to move towards certain goals. And if you're having challenges in the process, I need you to come to me instead of, floundering and really struggling in this position. I want to work with you, and I'm in it to work with you so that we can all grow together. And I think that team mentality is really, really important. And just say, look, like this is my business. This is what I want to bring to the world and make a massive impact this way. So is this something that you're on board with? Is this something that you're willing to do? Because not everybody, right? Like some people come in, Starr, like you said, there was people, you had somebody in your DMs that was maybe stealing business from you and that kind of thing. And some people come in with their own intentions. Like, I'm going to work for you, but I'm going to slowly like start to build my own thing. And I asked that in the beginning. Is it something, like, do you want to, with my VA, do you want to start an agency like Dan started? Do you want to move forward in another direction? And I'll act accordingly, because that's okay. If they want to come in for a small time, one of the best business lessons I've ever learned is that people are always leaving. They're always leaving. And so if you can create an environment where people always want to stay and you can offer them more. So for example, when people come and work for me, I'm like, hey, you also get access to my mastermind. You also get access to my programs. You also get access to the programs I pay for. So you can come in and you can learn the same way that I'm learning, and you don't have to spend the 30 grand that I just spent to have a mentor. Now you get access to that too. So I'm going to sweeten the deal that way, that we're growing together. And I think that piece is often missed. And so like, what do you guys think about that?
I think documentation is so important, Christina. Because sometimes you'll have a VA or any type of a team member who really thinks that they're producing and they're really not up to standard. So setting those KPIs in the beginning, like, what are your key performance indicators? What are my expectations of you on a daily basis and even an hourly basis? I've gone that granular with people. And then also writing them up if they're not doing things, or giving them some sort of warning, and then documenting them by date so that if it does come time for you to let them go, Christina, you tapped into that like emotional state that we're in. I mean, I would literally get sick when I have to fire staff. And this went on for years. Like I would be like, my stomach would be in knots for like a week before. And then the day of, I'm just like having so much anxiety. And my husband was just like, Starr, this person has done this, they're not doing that. And it's like, I understand, but I know that they have a family to support. So I think when you have those things in place, it can encourage you to get outside of that emotional state. Like they're really not beneficial to your business whatsoever. Go back and look at the history of that. And then also sharing that with them. Like, I gave you this warning on this date. We've asked you to adjust these particular things and you haven't been able to do that, or you're not able to. Some people just can't even sell, right? Or content that Dan is asking his VAs to create. They say they have the skills, but then maybe, Dan, you've brought some VAs on who really don't have the skills that they say they have.
Yeah, so you teach people different skill sets, though, don't you?
So yeah, a couple things. I mean, I love what you're saying there as far as like the metrics. That's I think a missing piece for a lot of people that hire VAs, is they don't have defined expectations of what success looks like. And that's a recipe for disaster, because there's a lot of people out there who want to get paid, but don't really want to work. And so they're
the truth.
Yeah. So you have to, find a way to eliminate those. And that's one of the things that we do well. And one of the advantages to going through an agency is I have an HR team, right? We do all the documentation, we process things, we hire people, we vet them, all that kind of thing, right? So it's a lot more solid than just hiring someone off the internet. The other thing that I think is important is that when you're building these expectations, that you have consistent communication. So I stress over and over again during the first month or so of a relationship between a client and a VA of regular communication. Usually we'll set up a group chat on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp so I can monitor it. And then I'll prod the VA to ask questions. I'll prod the client to, respond to follow up. Most of the time, if left on their own, the VA will stop asking questions because they keep asking questions in the beginning. The client's too busy. They don't get back to them right away. Things go sideways. And then before you know it, metrics aren't getting met. Neither one's very happy with each other, and things just don't end well, which is what I've identified as the most important opportunity to address. Right? So those metrics, the communication, that kind of structure that you want to have. I hate to make it feel too corporate, but there's some advantages to having that kind of mindset when it comes to working with a VA.
Do you recommend writing down, and I know everybody does, like your DMOs and you're all just doing all of that? Would a VA be able to take over that responsibility for doing all that, your KPIs and all that kind of stuff?
What I find is quite common is that most small business owners, that's not a strength of theirs, that they're not into a small business to write processes and to document things. So that's why I always suggest a lot of time, before we get you a VA who's going to manage your email or get you a VA to make your videos for you, let's get you a VA to kind of build this structure so that you have clear expectations. And in some cases that works. Like I have one client, she's like a weight loss expert, a fitness person. And I love her, but she's incredibly unorganized. And she just jumps from thing to thing to thing. And we were trying to do video editing for her. We're trying to do social media for her. And she kept changing every day. And it was impossible. So I said, okay, if we're going to keep working together, we want to hire a project manager. And this project manager is going to be your primary point of contact. They're going to delegate things to the video editors and the email people. They're going to document everything. And they're going to make sure that, everything works on time. And that's been like night and day since we brought a project manager in to help her. Everything's on time, organized. She's much happier, but it's because there's just too much chaos on the creative side and not enough structure in there. So
how many VAs do you think an entrepreneur, like a coach, like us three and Robert, would need in their business to make it run successfully? Like, do you need a tech one? Do you need a one with creativity? Do you need one to do all the video editing, or do you just have one, period?
So it's really hard and very rare to find a person that's equally talented in creatives and in organization.
Yeah.
So as a general rule, I say you need to have a right hand who can do almost everything you can do. That's the project mindset, the organization, the one thinking about the metrics and the processes. That person's someone you have, long term. The creative stuff can be project-based. It can be delegated through your right-hand person. So you don't always have to hire a full-time or a regular person to do your creative stuff, unless you're dropping video consistently every week. And then you can come up with somebody, but that usually comes step 2, because it's better to have okay content, but a good structure, than having great content and a horrible structure. Yeah. Because great content will get no likes. Great content there'll be no follow-up on it. You won't see any bang for your buck. But if you have someone who's organized and they're following up and they're consistent, then even so quality stuff will get clicks. So
we call that post and pray, right? How many people have done business and post and pray, post and pray somebody reaches out to you and pray somebody sees it, right? And that's just not how the algorithms work, right? Social media rewards you for being social. And that means not only commenting and engaging with other profiles, but also sending messages and following up and getting to know people and building relationships. It is a whole beast. I remember somebody came to me once and said, oh, hey, Christina, I'm looking for a job online and this company is hiring for a social media manager. How long do you think it would take me to pick up that? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, if I apply for this, how hard could it be? And I was like, it is a total beast. It is a beast. Yeah. And I think that people underestimate that piece of it, right? I had somebody reach out to me a couple of days ago and he said, hey, can you mention my app on your podcast? And I said, okay, but like, do you want to be a sponsor? Do you like, how do you want me to do that? Like, what's the, and he's like, well, I just want you to mention it. And I was like, okay, so I got to talk to you about how to build social media and how to build an audience and a community of people that will buy from you and support you, because it's not about, like, I've been doing this for almost 8 years consistently every single day. It is a lot of work, right? The people that are successful, the people that build over a 6-figure income or a 6 or 7-figure income, it's not because they posted and prayed. It's because they were intentional and had strategy in what they were doing. And they also had people that were really good behind the scenes as a team.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, Christina, I was attacked. Well, I won't say I was attacked. I put out a post like, stop posting and praying. And someone was like, how dare you tell people not to pray, Starr?
That's not what I meant.
I had to go and explain this is just a term that came from the recruiting space and send them documentation on it. I said, oh my God. I'm sorry.
Like, you just took it the wrong way. I mean, you had something happen like that a couple of weeks ago too. Like somebody took it the wrong way. You're like,
well, hey, and you know what? Like,
wait,
it happens, right? That people don't necessarily read things. I had a friend that I really admire in how she posts, and she's like, here's for the narcissists that think that every single one of my posts is about them, right? Because we read them and we're like, that hit me a certain way. And if you are good at what you do and you have a clear message, people will take that message and make it their own, right? They'll read it and they'll make it their own, just like this woman that was like, don't tell people not to pray. And it's like, no, like, actually, we're talking about industry and like a slang in the industry and how we talk online, right? And how we help entrepreneurs build business, because a lot of the times, again, they don't realize what goes in behind the scenes. They don't realize what it takes. And by the way, it takes a hell of a lot more this year than it did 2 years ago when everybody was sitting at home during COVID, scrolling through their phone, right? Or even 5 years ago when not that many people were even bravely using social media, because like, I don't want to post on social media. I'm like, I will be one of the only people that continue to do this, because that's how you build your chops, right? I remember Ray Higdon, who was on last week, he talked about doing a live video every single day. I think it's like 11 years now, or 12, like 12 years. Like, that is commitment to making an impact. Right? That is commitment to actually helping people. And there are very few people that are that dedicated to their business and adding value online. And so, that's what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to talk about like the real, raw, and unplugged way that you can build and scale your business, is that you can't do it alone. If you want to build a big business, if you want to scale a big business, you cannot do it alone, but go out and hire people that are better at things that you don't want to do than you. Right? Because you're just going to half-ass it anyways. Like, let's be honest. You're going to half-ass it and you're going to leave it to the end of the day because you don't want to do it. I know so many people that don't use follow-up properly because they're like, they take it personally. They're like, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to harass people. And I'm like, if you don't do that follow-up and you don't connect with people over and over and over again and build a relationship, they will never buy from you. And most people don't realize it takes usually an average of 21 touch points by posting, by messaging, by commenting, by seeing your name. It takes an average of 21 touch points to bring in a new client. And so are you sitting there and strategically building that relationship with the people that you want to work with? Or are you kind of just throwing poop at the wall and see what sticks?
Right.
And just a few years ago, it was 7 to 12 touches. And now here it is at 21 now, because people are getting bombarded with everything, emails, marketing, TV, or, all the stuff getting hit. But if they're going through, and so, so many people are saying, is email marketing like a bad thing, or is it going away? I'm like, no, you got to do it all. They have to do it all. On Facebook. They have to see you on Instagram. They have to have an email popping through, even if they don't open it up. They still see your name going through their emails. They're going through YouTube. They'll see a YouTube video coming through the YouTube. You're like, oh, you know what? Let me see what this girl's got to do. Let me see what she has to offer, because I'm seeing her face everywhere. And then they finally click on, a TikTok, or they click on a YouTube video. So you do got to be everywhere. And Dan,
I think that. Go ahead.
I know you just added, well, not just, I'm gonna say, the video piece to your business. And all of these coaches, I know when we're on the other show, hired you to do their video content. And that is so important to get that video out there. What do you suggest? Because I know now they have YouTube Shorts. They have Reels now on IG. They have Reels on Facebook. So you say that you create all your content in one day, and you can create how much content out of that?
So there's a couple of different ways to look at it. And I'm going to caveat that by saying I think it's changing. But for the last year, 2 years, since post-COVID, everyone's been talking about you have to do Reels, right? Short form videos, 30 seconds or less, 60 seconds max, something to catch attention.
Yeah.
And so, for example, like in this case, if we record an hour-long podcast, then we should slice it up into like 3 or 4 reels of 30 to 60 seconds, highlighting a point, a tip, a strategy, something that's really kind of a good soundbite. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's a good strategy. But I'm wondering what's next. So I'm always kind of thinking, what's coming next? Because we've been doing this for a couple years now, and it's getting a little bit stale. I think everyone's creating short form content now, so it's not new. And I wonder, especially if we're trying to attract people where there's so much content out there, right? If everyone's creating so much content, it's getting harder and harder for your stuff to get viewed. So I'm actually thinking we're moving back to a little bit more organic, a little bit more thinking about not how to broadcast to everyone, but broadcast to a really small community, a community of, of your best fans, of your biggest supporters. And I think that when you look at people that are successful, and I know Tina mentioned a couple people, I have a couple of clients of mine, Michelle and Marina, who are just really good at what they do. And we do their videos for them, and they're able to really build a presence. They have a style about them, a vibe, and we work really well with them to be able to take that and slice it up into these reels, and they get a lot of play. So I think that's a must-have strategy for anybody who's speaking in front of an audience. You should have these short form videos. But I'm also, like I said, I'm trying to figure out what's coming next, because I'm wondering, every couple of years we seem to change course when it comes to social media. Yeah. And I'm not sure, but I'm looking forward to it, whatever happens next. So
I think that's a really important concept to realize as an entrepreneur, is that you're constantly evolving, right? You don't just set it and forget it and get in the habit of doing something over and over and over again. You have to evolve with the scene, right? And often, when people first get into entrepreneurship, they're like, I don't want to do videos. And I'm like, okay, if you don't do videos and you don't show your personality and you don't get good at it, because we all sucked, by the way, when we first started, we all sucked. But if you don't do that and you just do stagnant posts, you're not going to get the engagement that you want, and you're not going to get the growth in your network that you want. Robert asked this question, and I want to ask you, Dan. Would you agree that most entrepreneurs are fearful of outsourcing with the false expectation of losing control? And how do you coach this mindset?
That's a great question, Robert. So yeah, and I think it's natural. I think we touched on it a little bit before in talking about the fears that entrepreneurs have. They want to do everything. And I think we've all experienced this ourselves. So I think that how I coach people, how I instruct people to try to get past this is, again, think of those couple of low-hanging fruit, right? The things that you could do yourself, but they take up time. Like editing videos is the best example, because editing videos, as Tina said earlier, it takes a while to get good at it. I mean, especially, and then you got to figure out which platform you want to use. Do you want to use Filmora or Adobe or CapCut? And then you got to figure out all the ways to animate. And the thing is if you're like me, like I'm middle-aged, I don't get it, and I don't even try, right? So I outsource all my video editing and all my social media to Gen Z, because they live it, right? They grew up with it. So they don't have to learn how to edit videos. It's kind of inherent in them. Yeah. And so that's what I feel like. So if you feel like you have to do it all yourself, then at least identify some of the things that can be done by somebody else and start with those. And if it's video editing or posting on social media, those are the areas where I think are the easiest ones to let go of, because most of us didn't grow up with that stuff. So it's not something that we feel we have to own. That's what I would suggest.
And something that'll take them only an hour to do will probably take you 3 or 4.
Exactly. Yeah,
not as good.
Yeah, I don't even bother trying to edit my own videos. I tried briefly, and it's not my good use of my time.
I tried briefly too, and I was like, oh, I hate this.
Robert, he said his first podcast included 30 minutes of video and took him 2 hours to edit. And I mean, that was me with graphics. When I first started like with Canva, I was like, oh my God, this is going to take me forever. So now I'm just like, how about I outsource that to somebody for $10, right? And have them do it instead of me take 3 hours of my valuable time, which could, and by the way, and by value, I mean, either working on my business or like spending time with my family. Like that to me is worth so much money. And that's why I do what I do, is so that I have that freedom and flexibility to do so. But you have to have a team that helps you with it. So we're coming up to the hour. Is there anything that you guys want to leave people with when it comes to leveraging your business with outsourcing? Is there any like a big message that that's epiphany that you've had because you've done this?
I would say delegate as soon as you can. As soon as you can, to delegate at least your social media strategy and posting.
Yeah, definitely outsource as quickly as possible. Be quick to fire. Those are some of the things that we already talked about. And for me, I also hire people now on a trial basis. So let's see how you do over the course of the week or two, so that they have expectations to put in their best, foot forward. And then if it doesn't work out, then there's no strings attached.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, so one of the things too that I want to mention is that if you are hiring somebody to build your brand with you, I am more apt to hire people based on who they are versus what they can do for me. Their skill set is important, right? But that's something that they can develop and grow. Yes. I want to hire somebody that is absolutely in alignment with my mission, with my vision, with my values, the people that are going to show up and represent my brand. And I'm going to be really proud of them for that, right? So often I'll hire based on personality and who they are versus, their laundry list of qualities that they can provide.
Exactly. Well, we are coming up on the end of the hour. Dan, thank you so much not only for coming on our show today and teaching us this amazing stuff that we all need to know about delegating, but also being the sponsor the whole month of September on Uncensored Entrepreneurs. We go live every week on Thursday. Every
sometime
1 p.m. Eastern. We will see you guys next week. Have a fantastic week and happy Labor Day.
Thank you.
Woo! Nice to meet you.